Hello, Burnham Electric. Mrs. Jenkinson, yes ma'am. Yeah, no, actually, I got your quote right here. Hold on, send it over here just real soon.
You'll have to excuse him. That's my cousin's friend. He means well, but he's all over the place. Many home service businesses are still using pen and paper to keep track of their daily operations.
You'll have to hold on, I'm getting another call. Mr. Scottston. No, I wrote right down here, it says that your job is scheduled for tomorrow. I wrote it down right here. What do you mean it is tomorrow? Listen to yourself.
Things have been pretty busy recently, and I use Jobber to keep my operations in line.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your address again? Lane Fort Drive. Okay, yeah, I might be there today.
With Jobber, my schedule, quotes, invoices, and payments are all organized in one place. No lost paperwork, no double bookings, no guessing.
Oh, hold on. What's this? Yeah, hello. Hold on. Hello? Mr. Yolandis. Yeah, no, I almost forgot about you, but no, I'm coming. No, listen, I told you when I was there, it's cash only. Cash only.
And with Jobber, my customers can pay me however they want. Card, check, cash, even Apple Pay with Tap to Pay on iPhone.
Am I licensed? Yeah, no, because technically that don't count towards anything in this state here.
Like I said, my cousin's friend might mean well, but I run my business like a pro using Jobber. Click the top link in the description to give it a try. 14 days for free, as well as an exclusive Palmer Electrical discount you don't want to miss out on. Oh. Hey, man.
Hey, man. What was that program you was using again?
Good morning, everyone. This is Jacob Palmer from Palmer Electrical. Thank you for joining me back on the Palmer Electrical YouTube channel. As always, if you like what you see in the video, leave a like, leave a comment, tell me how you think I did, and hit the subscribe button if you feel compelled to do so. Today, we are taking care of an age-old problem for one of my good customers. He has a relatively new construction home with a big 2-car garage, 10-foot ceilings, and it is served by one single bulb keyless fixture. And I mean, that's not enough light for anybody. So we're gonna get that taken care of today. We're gonna use the same switch. We're gonna get rid of the keyless fixture, and then we're gonna install 3 4-foot LED strip light fixtures. I'm gonna take you along with me. We'll talk a little bit of code. I'm gonna show you some of my techniques and tips and tricks, kind of how I do this type of work. And I hope you'll join me along for the ride. We just arrived at the customer's house. I'm gonna take you inside, tell you a little bit about what we got going on. All right, and here we are. Big, gorgeous garage with one puny light bulb to serve the whole thing. I understand why builders do this. There's no code requirement for extra good light in the garage. This is cheap, it's inexpensive, it gets the job done barely. And this isn't enough of a big issue to prevent somebody from buying the home entirely. Otherwise, this is a very nice home. So this is a really common job that I get as a residential electrician. This type of work gets done all the time, and I know there are other people out there looking to do the same thing. So I'm gonna get some of my tools and materials out of the truck, and we'll get started. I've got 14 gauge NMB wire. I've got a container of NMB connectors, and I've got my 3 floodlights. These are the strip lights we got installed here. I went with the Lithonia. These are 4-foot LED strip lights. Product information is on the screen now. Claims 5,500 lumens per strip. So 3 of these should be plenty bright to light up the garage over here. There's kind of 3 main pieces here. There's the lens cover here. We'll set that aside. And then this middle piece contains the actual LED strip. And then you pop the LED strip off. And then the main housing here holds the LED driver. This is where our main power connects, hot neutral. And then there is a ground pigtail over here. This fixture does support 0 to 10 volt dimming, which we won't be utilizing here, of course, but that's this purple and pink set of wires here. So that's our lights. We've got 3 of them. We'll get a few more tools out and get started. All right, this light is controlled from this wall switch here. This guy. I'm gonna put just a little bit of tape here just to prevent the homeowner or anybody from coming in here and just inadvertently turning this on. This is no proper lockout tagout procedure, but in a case like this, there's no other contractors here. It's just the homeowner. He knows I'm out here working and I don't want to disrupt power to a large area of the home. And that switch is going to be within sight the whole time that I'm here working. So I feel comfortable enough to use it. I'm going to get this existing light fixture taken apart here. 1 bulb, 2 screws. There it goes. All right, set this aside. This bulb is still good. We'll leave it around for the homeowner. All right, so here's the plan. We'll have one strip light going down the middle right here over this existing hole. I've got one of these round blank covers here. This is going to serve as a backer. These fixtures here aren't quite as wide as that hole is, so this is going to be a backer behind the center fixture just to cover up the hole. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a measurement from the center to the side walls here, and then I'm going to go up into the attic space. I'm going to measure in the attic space and poke down with a small screwdriver. I know the framing in the attic goes this way along the ceiling. So I'll be able to get them centered up side to side just by following the same rafter and poking next to it at the same distance. And that'll also give me a chance to see exactly where the rafters are so I can see where to screw through the fixtures to attach them to the rafters. So step one, I'm going to get a measurement from the center of the box to the side walls. 10 feet and 1 inch is that way. 9 feet and 11 inches that way. So it looks like it's exactly 1 inch off from center. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the same measurement on both sides. In a garage like this, it's not going to be noticed. So I'm going to go 5 feet both ways and then 1 right down the middle. Okay, so now I'm going to go up into the attic and poke down where my lights are going to go. I have my beater screwdriver here just to make a small hole down. Got my tape measure so I can measure over from the center. And then when I do this, there will be some dust that falls down, but it won't be all that much. It shouldn't spread out onto the other belongings in the garage. It'll just be a little bit of dust for me to sweep up off the floor. Alrighty. Trash up in the attic, we'll get that removed while we're up here. All right, so here's our fixture box here. I'm gonna make our holes 1 3/4 inches off the joist and 5 feet over from the center of this box here. All right. 5 feet over. There's 5 feet over from center. Make a mark. And then 1 3/4 inches. Just right at the end of that line here. 5 feet to the middle of the box. And then over this way. There's 5 feet right there. And then 1 3/4 inches. It's right about there. This isn't a method that you want to use for interior lighting, for interior spaces, but for a garage like this, it should be just fine. All right, so we've located the center of our 2 fixtures. Okay, and I like to try to make the most of my attic trips, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this box removed while I'm up here. I'll pull this wiring back that I know is off, because I can actually still see the light switch through the attic door here, so I know it's safe. I'm actually gonna go ahead and pull this all the way back here. I'm gonna cut off the end of the neutral so we don't trip an arc fault breaker. And we're gonna get this wire pulled all the way back to our first strip light location, and that way we'll just jump from there to the 2 other wires with new 14.2. All right, got that pulled back. Plenty of slack on that wire. Now I'm going to try to get a hold of these nails with my wire strippers and get them pulled out. So we'll see how feasible that's going to be. Or we can just break it. Looks like we have the these pretty brittle type outlet boxes here. Bend these nails out of the way. There we go. Perfect. All right, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for some code time. Some of y'all just probably watched me remove that outlet box and started to wonder, hey, aren't we supposed to have outlet boxes at all of our splicing, termination, light fixtures? We're supposed to have outlet boxes, right? Well, ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, let's crack open our code book here, and I'm going to tell you exactly why this is allowed. I'm just going to casually line up these cool looking stickers here. We'll talk about those in a future video. I'm going to be reading out of my 2023 NEC code book today, but most of what I'm talking about is all just basic requirements which don't really change a lot between years. To start, we are going to take a trip to 300.15J. Article 300 outlines general requirements for wiring methods and materials. This is the very start of chapter 3 in our code book. It's a really important chapter, and this is where a lot of our most common requirements come from. But where I want to take you specifically is 300.15. Boxes, conduit bodies, or fittings where required. I'm going to go down here to 300.15J, Luminaires. Luminaires, a fancy word for light fixture like what we're installing. A box or conduit body shall not be required where a luminaire is used as a raceway as permitted in 410.64. What does 410.64 say? Let's see. .64. Luminaires as raceways. Luminaires shall not be used as a raceway for circuit conductors unless they comply with 410.64A, B, or C. Right here at the top, 410.64A, luminaires listed and marked for use as a raceway shall be permitted to be used as a raceway. Listed. Listed is one thing that some people get confused on, so let's look up the definition of listed. Go back here to Article 100. Listed, right here, says equipment, materials, or services included in a list published by an organization that is acceptable to the authority of having jurisdiction and concerned with the evaluation of products or services, maintains periodic inspection services, blah, 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 blah. It's a really long definition, but basically it means that it's been tested. It's been tested and certified by an NRTL. That's Nationally Recognized Testing Laboratory. Their logos are all over the place. You definitely recognize them, especially if you're in the electrical field. Think of things like UL, CSA, Intertech. They're testing laboratories. They test products, make sure they're safe, make sure they're not going to burn your house down, that they're going to work when connected to the wiring systems that surround us in our lives. I know the lights that I installed are listed. It's right there on the box, and pretty much everything that you're going to find at Lowe's or Home Depot, all the major name brand retailers, it's a pretty safe bet that the products that they sell are going to be listed. Be very careful when you start purchasing things on Amazon and on Wayfair and all these other big name online retailers that get a lot of their stuff from overseas. A lot of times those manufacturers will skip those product listings because they're expensive to do. 99% of the time they're still going to function just fine if they're not listed, but it's very possible that they skip some important safety steps and details in those products. So it's just something to look out for. I've printed off the manufacturer supplied directions for the products that I installed, and you can see here, bundle wires in a tight grouping to be out of the way and reinstall wireway cover assembly. The wireway cover assembly is that middle piece of metal with the strip attached to it. That's the wireway assembly cover. So we can see right here that in the manufacturer supplied instructions, it's telling us to do that on this listed luminaire. So as long as the luminaire is properly supported, which it will be, according to the manufacturer instructions, we're good to go to not have that outlet box present. The terminations will be made inside the wireway that's in the light fixture built in. Most modern LED strip light fixtures, like what you've seen me install in this video, are listed for that type of installation. You don't necessarily need an outlet box, but it's important to read the manufacturer instructions to see if that's allowed or not. Moving on, if you had a kind of a sharp eye, you might have noticed right here on the installation guide that it specifically says connect fixture to supply wires rated for at least 90 degrees Celsius, 90 degrees C. It's pretty common knowledge that for Romex NMB wire, the ampacity is limited to the 60-degree column. 14 AWG is good for 15 amps, 12 AWG is good for 20, 10 AWG is good for 30. You know, that's pretty common knowledge. If we go to table 310.16, we can see here that all of those ratings, 15 amps for 14, 20 for 12, that's all under the 60-degree column. So what the hell, Jacob? You're such a hack. What do you do? Clear is 60 degrees, says you need 90 degree right here. Why don't we take a trip to Article 334? I spend a lot of time in Article 334 as a residential electrician. Article 334, non-metallic sheathed cable, types NM and NMC. And if we go back here to 334.80, talks about ampacity. The ampacity of NM and NMC cable shall be determined in accordance with 310.14. The ampacity shall not exceed that of a 60-degree rated conductor. We've talked about this exact code section on the channel before, but this is an important information, and it's an important rule to follow when we're doing residential wiring. NM cable, no more than the 60-degree column as far as ampacity. If we go here to part 3 of Article 334 and follow it down to insulation. The insulated power conductors shall be one of the types listed in table 310.41 that are suitable for branch circuit wiring or one that is identified for use in these cables. Conductor insulation shall be rated at 90 degrees Celsius. And if we take a look at the little informational note, NM and NMC cable identified by the markings NMB and NMCB meet this requirement. So what this is saying is that NMB wire, that is ubiquitous in the industry now, the insulation inside of the cable is rated at 90 degrees Celsius. The ampacity of this cable, the amount of current that can flow through this cable, is limited to that of a 60 degree rated conductor, but the insulation is rated at 90. Therefore, this requirement for 90 degree C rated wires in the manual is fulfilled with NMB wire. I just think that's super cool. Isn't that really interesting? Back to the video. Customer graciously allowed us to use his articulating ladder here for attic access. Gets me a little bit taller than my 6-footer does. I don't have my 8-footer with me. You can see here, the label says this ladder conducts electricity. That's a warning. As most people know, electricians don't really buy aluminum ladders, but this is all right. I'm not really doing any actual electrical work on this aluminum ladder. I'm just using it for access. Moving on. All right, we got our first hole here, got our other one. Both are exactly 5 feet away from the original light location here. And this one should be 4 feet, 11 inches from the wall. That one is 5 feet and 1 inch from the wall. 1 inch difference is never going to really be noticeable and really won't make that much of a difference as far as light distribution. I'm going to get my hole saws out to enlarge those holes we made in the ceiling. We're going to go with a 7/8 inch hole saw, and that's because this 7/8 inch will be just the right, God, idiot Jacob. I'm gonna get this 1 inch hole saw here. This 1 inch hole saw is gonna be the perfect size for one of these button style pop-in connectors. I'm gonna use the hole saw to drill out those holes larger and use the bucket to catch the dust. Now, time for wire. And with this, I already pretty much know how much wire I need. One of the little tricks that I learned is that your wingspan from fingertip to fingertip held out like this, usually it's approximately the same as your height. It's not exact, but it's relatively reliable. So I know that these lights are only 5 feet apart here. I am about 6 feet tall. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pull this out, extend it, and then cut it a few inches extra here, like that, maybe an extra foot. And I'm going to do that twice. Measure them out the exact same length. And this should be almost exactly the correct amount of wire to jump between these lights here. All right, got my Milwaukee M12 cable stapler. This is one of my favorite tools. Not a sponsor. We'll make another trip up to the attic with wire and staples. All right. We'll start with the far end first. We'll feed about 8 or 10 inches down the hole. Staples are within 6 inches of the cable entry and then up to 4.5 feet thereafter. We'll take our loose end, put it down the hole. These Milwaukee staplers are rated to stack cables like this. I forget the exact, what the maximums are and what different sizes you are allowed to do this. I know definitely with 14 and 12. We'll take our other jumper, put it down the hole. Here we are. Here's our original wire. And then our new wire goes down. All right, 334.30 fulfilled. And you know what's cool? If everything else goes right, that's the only time we need to spend in the attic. Here's our end one, middle, and the first one closest to the switch here. And that's the hardest parts out of the way. Maybe I shouldn't say that so fast. Sometimes it can be a pain to put these up on the ceiling alone. So let's get started doing that. Some really useful information is that we know that we did the center of these holes 1 3/4 inches away from the edge of the joist. The joist is 1.5 inches, so an extra 3/4. That's 2.5 inches from the center of this hole is the center of the joist above. Another useful piece of information is that we know that these joists here are about 2 feet on center. And check the next line also, 2 feet. So if we go 2 feet away from our first securement spot, we should line up with the center of the next joist over. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of these light fixtures disassembled, ready to go up. They each are attached with the 2 leads that feed the LEDs as well as a ground pigtail. I'm going to remove both of them just for ease of installation. There's that piece removed. I'm going to do that same thing for all 3 just so we can get it installed without too much hassle. I'm going to set the LEDs and the lens aside. All right, now each one gets a connector. The middle one is also going to get this little plate. And I'm going to go ahead and measure now and make a mark inside the fixture where our joists are. So we know there's one 2.5 inches from the center knockout, and we know there's one 2 feet away from that. Now, I don't think we'll have 2 feet this way, so we'll have to mark 2 feet this way. And then to secure these to the ceiling, I am going to use some of these 1.5 inch hex drive screws paired with some 1-inch diameter fender washers just to distribute the pressure. This is thin sheet metal. It's easy to bend if you tighten a screw too much. And then one of the ends is going to be pretty unsupported, so I'm going to use some of these heavy-duty toggler wall anchors to effectively support the other end. Our first one, we'll feed it through the connector. This can be kind of a challenge to do alone with no help, but it's not impossible. My best advice is to take your time. Don't rush it, because especially working alone, the faster you go and if you're trying to rush and get stuff done quickly alone, you could hurt yourself, you could hurt the house, you could hurt your equipment, you can miswire something. So I like to really just take it easy. All right, I'm gonna look at it from the ground. I'm gonna make sure it looks nice and even. I'll back up some. Looks like it needs to rotate to the right just a little bit. Looks perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and get the other end secured where I know there's another joist. All right, we got our heavy duty wall anchor here, and then 2 of those wood screws with big washers here and one at the end. Now I'm gonna go grab some Wago connectors, connect up all these wires, and then we'd copy and paste the other 2. All right, I'm gonna grab some of these Wago connectors here to make these connections. I find these to be just a little more reliable, more consistent than wire nuts. You know, they are interchangeable. I honestly don't think at this point that there's one that's actually better than the other. Get the wire stripped down here. There's a lot of other wires up here, so we're gonna be super careful while my knife is up in here not to nick anything that doesn't need to be cut. And then I usually leave a good little length of wire. Our hot and our neutral conductors, I'm gonna tuck up around the other side, strip off some conductor. Wagos don't need a lot, less than 1/2 inch really. Neutral, neutral, hot, hot. These clear Wagos make it really easy to look inside and make sure that your conductors are fully seated. So now we need to connect our ground here, and we're going to use the same method here and here. That tucked up. The purple and pink wire are not being used. That's for the 0 to 10 volt dimming. This orange and blue wire is what's going to get used to connect the LED array. Here we've got our LEDs. We'll screw our ground pigtail back onto here. These are our DC, positive and negative. Excellent. Tuck everything up into the housing very carefully. Take your time doing this. This part can be frustrating. A lot of times the wires will want to poke back out, keeping your cover from going back on the way it's supposed to, but looks like this one, not too much of a fight. Now we'll take our clear lens, pop it into place, center it up. There's one of 3. Now just copy paste to the other 2 light locations. All right, 1, 2, and 3, all wired up and installed. Same as the first. The big reveal, ta-da! These lights are a huge improvement. I always feel bad for new homeowners who buy a brand new house and they have to live with this This thing, one bulb pointing straight down in the middle, not enough. They sell those screw-in LED array, little LED bulb area light things, and I guess those are an improvement. In my opinion, they're a little tacky. That's just me. They work just fine. They're totally functional. This work here was not that hard. I don't have to charge my customer very much for it, and it will make a big difference. So like I mentioned earlier, leave a comment and let me know if you have questions. This was a very simple install. If you're in the industry, this is very basic for you. But if you're new, or maybe you're trying to DIY something similar, I don't recommend it, but if you have questions, you may leave a comment. I answer a lot of the questions that get posted in my comments. Critiques too. If you have a better way of doing this work, maybe a better way of getting them leveled out and even, let me know. Of course, I did this by eye, which there's an old saying, if it looks straight, it is straight, and these all look parallel here, and then if you look at it from the front, they all look good and straight. But I guarantee you, if you try to take like a precision measurement, they're probably not exactly perfectly parallel. But as the old adage goes, if it looks straight, it is straight. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this install, and I want to thank you so much for watching today's video. I always have a blast making videos here on the Palmer Electrical YouTube channel. Also leave a comment and tell me what you want to see next. What other type of work do you want to see done? This was a good install. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Jacob Palmer from Palmer Electrical. Take care.